So welcome to the first of our new monthly webinars that are hosted by IHWA. I know there's a slight irony that the very first of these webinars is called Endings, and actually it's happening at the start of the academic year for most schools. But I'm sorry about that, because it's still an important topic while you're thinking about starting the school year and taking on board lots of new clients. I do encourage you to think about how you end things with them. I'm just going to share my screen now so you can see the presentation. And there we go. So you should be able to see it now. So endings. Why are endings important? Endings have been an important part of human cultural history for a very long time. We all know that the ancient Egyptians thought a lot about the end of their life, really, and so much so that they created these artifacts that we still know today, thousands of years later. So the end of life for many ancient Egyptians was important for them throughout their life. And they didn't think of the end of life on this mortal earth as necessarily the end, absolutely. They thought of it as a journey, the start of a new journey somewhere else, to a different world, or maybe back to this world. So that whole concept of the end and something after is very powerful in human cultural history. And that's true in Western cultures and in Western religious history as well. This concept that after something finishes, after life on earth finishes, there's somewhere else, some other place you're going to go and carry on in time, whether that's heaven, as in this picture, or hell. That concept of somewhere else, something happening after the end of life, is powerful within all of us. And thinking not just of the end of life, that's a bit rather sort of final, or it's too significant really. If we think of our own lives and the things we remember and the things that resonate with us, ends of experiences are very powerful. So I remember, I'm sure you remember, the last dance, the end of a party, a goodbye, a farewell, the end of a holiday or of a meeting, or the end of some endeavour or some race, when you reach the end, reach what you want to achieve. So that sense of an end is a very powerful thing. And because it's powerful emotionally to us as human beings, when we look at the business and how you're delivering products to your clients, customer experience research says that the end of an experience is disproportionately significantly viewed into how good we think the whole experience is. So when we have a commercial experience, when we buy something, when we partake of a service, how it ends, it is really significant on how we view it and how we remember it. And when I was thinking about this, I thought of this phrase, "have a nice day," which is, in England anyway, we always thought it was an American phrase, have a nice day, after you bought something or you left a shop or something. And whilst we might think of it as a bit cheesy or a bit corny, I think they were onto something, that ending of the meeting or relationship or whatever it was, resonates with us. We remember it. We quite often still remember that "have a nice day" phrase, even though it's a bit cheesy, isn't it? I want to give you a bit of an anecdote now. When I did this presentation with a group of teachers at a school in the summer, and one of them said, "Yeah, this really makes sense to me." She said she'd done her CELTA at an IH school some years previously, and their practice was on the last day or the day after the last day, was everybody got together for like a tea party, and it was all finished and it was just nice and talking. And she said that she couldn't really remember much about the whole CELTA, not in detail, but that final meeting, that final get together, she still had really vivid memories of the conversations she had with people and what people were wearing or what people said and where they said they were going. So that concept that it was the end, she remembered in great detail about what happened, and she had a really fond memories of the whole experience, buoyed up by the fond memories of that last final, couple of hours or afternoon together. So this concept that people remember, and it's very significant in our memory, is real. I think it is really real. If you think of how you treat your clients and your customers, we tend to put a lot of effort into the start of something, the welcome, the first impressions count, and customer experience throughout the client's journey should be good. But it may be easy to sort of forget it at the end. You can think, oh yeah, they're with us, they love us, and so we don't put so much emphasis on it. But if this happens, the closing experience is a bit naff, it's a bit boring at the end, it isn't sort of exciting, then your clients aren't going to be left with such a positive impression of you. Now, if all you have is one interaction with them and you say goodbye and you never expect to hear from them again, then actually, so what? But that's not the case, is it? With most of our clients, we want them to come back. Just as with the ancient Egyptians, they thought the end of life was a journey somewhere else. For our clients, we often want them to come back. We often want them to enroll or re-enroll, or enroll maybe later on an exam course, or at least at the absolute minimum tell their friends how good we were and encourage them to re-enroll. So having a bad ending experience is not good for you. Why are endings so important then? Well, I'm not a psychologist, and there are hundreds of psychologists with hundreds of different opinions about this. So if you got 20 in a room, I think you'd get 20 different opinions. Honestly, I don't know why the end is such an important, psychologically, in our human psyche, why the end is so important. But psychologists confirm that it is. Anyway, too difficult to go into all the psychological theory of it, but I want to give you one psychologist's kind of take on this, which I think is a nice, simple way to think about this. He says, for an experience, a whole experience, we are really judge it on two things: the peak and the end. The peak end rule. It's easy to remember. The peak, really significant experience at any point in time, makes us think, yeah, this is rather really good, or really bad if it is. Peak and the end, we remember what happens at the end. So that's, bear that in mind. Think of that when you're thinking of what you're going to do throughout the client journey, how you're going to improve their experience, peak and end. I want to talk about the ends, obviously. I'm going to give you some examples that happened, that are written about in the UK, really. So in the UK, Sky TV subscribe for TV services. It's very common. I'm sure in lots of other places around the world, similar things exist. With Sky TV, you subscribe for a certain amount of time, and then at the you can then close your contract, leave to go with somebody else, or renew it, I guess. Sky, at least until recently, had actually made that process of ending them very difficult. Obviously, contractually you can, but they made it so you had to do something on the website, and then you had to fill in a form, and then you had to phone somebody in a call centre, and then the person at the call centre was charged with talking to you and trying to convince you to stay on board. And sometimes this conversation took up to an hour, and an hour long. This is so bad that people were writing into newspapers saying how bad it was. They were writing kind of help blogs, like how to circumvent this. Now, I know it's totally legitimate for business to when a customer says it's going to leave, to try and say, oh, why don't you think about staying, you know, benefits of staying with us are this. That's totally legitimate. But the evidence with Sky is they were going so far down that line, they were putting so many hurdles for customers to go through. The customers had such a bad feeling when they were leaving that they had this kind of profile. Quite a good experience all the way through, but the ending was terrible. Now, that you can say, well, they were leaving, so what? But the fact of the matter is, they may have left for another contract period, but actually they may have at some point in the future otherwise come back. But with this profile, the ending was so bad, they are really unlikely ever to come back again. So you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot as a company, meaning these people are not going to come back to you. Particularly relevant with gyms. You know, we sign up for a gym in January feeling all keen about getting fit in the year with our New Year's resolutions, but actually we're all terrible about it and we leave and then we go somewhere else because we're embarrassed because we hadn't been to the gym for the past 6 months and were they going to look at us funny. So gyms have a really high turnover rate, customer turnover rate. Some gyms responded to this by making it really difficult to leave. Long contract periods, long tie-in periods and no cooling off periods. This was having a detrimental effect, exactly as that, you know, you go along and it's okay. Leaving is really difficult. And that's significant in both the gym industry and, you know, for Sky TV, because if it's so bad to leave, you're not going to go back. You're not going to think, oh, try somewhere down the road for, you know, 6 months. And if they're no good, I could go back to my first one. We would, as customers, naturally do that until the end experience is so bad that we're like, I am never going back there again. So that's the thing we need to, we need to be aware of and watch out for, really. So how do we relate this to IH schools? Okay, you know, we too have customers that come to an end of a period with us, or a period of booking with us, or, you know, a year, or, you know, whatever it is, and we don't want to let them have a like a bit of a naff or a negative or just like a not very good experience at the end. We want to give them this uptick at the end, this buoyant, positive feeling that, yeah, it was really good. And this is what we want them to leave them with, so that they definitely come back, rebook with us, leave maybe, but book again in 6 months for an exam, or, you know, whatever it is. Positive ending is what we want. So, as I said previously, I gave this talk at the directors conference this year in Catania, and directors at the time had an opportunity to contribute what they did in their schools and what they thought they could do. So these are some examples from schools, which we talked about at the time. And these things will be really familiar with lots of you, I'm sure. Graduation ceremonies at the end, a barbecue at the end of the year, some fun sort of party, awards ceremonies, whatever it is. They're common, they, tried and tested. So think about doing them. If you don't do them in your school, think about how you could implement them as suitable for your particular kind of students. Different things work well. Other schools said they gave their students some kind of memento when they left, a bag or something like that. One school suggested a time machine letter, which I think was a sealed letter, which then they would be able to open, at some time in the future, which is quite a nice idea. Email goodbyes, photos, things like that. Nice ways to end. I'm never suggesting that every school should, have a lavish party with loads of food and entertainers and cost loads of money. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but I'm not saying that's the only thing that works. I think there's lots of different possible things that would work, which would create that possible positive feeling at the end. Schools who are thinking about students who totally left them, so not just at the end of a term, say, maybe this is more in a study abroad context. Some schools offered free online lessons a free online lesson after they left, just to kind of keep them, well, now you're back, how are you getting on with what you're doing? Just some nice little touch, if you like. Some schools suggested or did do a phone call after they arrived home, just to kind of say, well, we're really happy you had some time with us and we're just checking you've got back home okay. All nice kind of little touches, impressive little touches. Alumni gatherings and such like in other schools. So a variety of things that you could do. Now, just as in the examples, my examples of Sky TV and gyms, I think for virtually every school, the reality is some clients who you want to rebook with you or start another course with you don't, and they go to a competitor, and that's just business reality. If you let them do that, or if you're a bit negative with them when they do that, what you're saying is, yeah, you made a good decision not to come back with us, we're not all that good. You're validating their decision, and that they won't come back. They're really unlikely to come back to you. But if you want to create a situation where you do want them back, you're not just leaving the door open for them, you're kind of leaving the door open and a good bit of elastic on that door. If you want to encourage them to come back at some future time, you need to make that end experience with you as positive as possible. So in this terrible situation where somebody left the wonderful International House and went to awful Kaplan, which I'm sure it happens to none of your students, but let's imagine it does, what are you going to do? So you need to be listening and understanding their decision. Keep that communication open, do nice things, remind them of how good it was with you, give them a good luck card. Your lovely schools, and when your students are with you, you encourage and share with them the whole time about how keen you are for them to progress, how important their learning is, all of that sort of thing. If you keep that going, and if you can say to them, we're still really keen for you to learn and progress, even if you're at that rubbish school down the road, but we still want you to do really well. If you can communicate that, then honestly, they're really likely to come back to you. It's not a huge cost for you, and they're likely to come back. So think about those ending situations. The whole ending, the end of the whole experience with you, the whole course of the year, is one thing, and that's, I think, the big thing. But you could also break this down, as directors did when we went through this before, into the ends of smaller sort of chunks of time or smaller interactions with you. So the welcome, or the end of the lesson, or what have you. And here were some ideas about what schools could do at the ends of these particular interactions. So remember, we're not talking about the whole welcome induction session as is, we're talking about how it ends. So at the end, that sort of that positive lift that you're giving people at the end when they walk out or when they leave. So newsletter, a plan, something like that. The end of lessons, I always think the end of lessons are really important. When I go to schools and observe lessons, and I was taught when I was teaching myself, the end is really critical to how you learn, how you remember, how you feel about how the lesson went as a student, how you feel about how it went. Those lessons which sort of was a bit of here's your homework, shuffling of papers, bye, I'll see you in a week's time, don't achieve that positive uplift at the end. So some things recap, positive takeaway, some nice positive kind of positive thing, however you do it at the end. End of lessons are really important. Maybe at the end of a week or the end of a term, there could be some personal visits or calls or questionnaire or something that just gives the end of the week or the term a little bit of a positive feeling. How this is done in different schools will depend definitely on the kinds of students that you have, and all schools know their students really well, but I'd encourage you just to think about that you know, how you can do that, how you can achieve that, how you can give that lift. And especially maybe think about it in terms of, if you look at your re-enrollment numbers and your re-enrollment percentages, if you're hitting your targets, and that's fantastic. If you're not hitting your targets for those, then thinking about the endings may help to improve them. It's one of the things you can do, one of the toolkits in your arsenal to try and improve that re-enrollment rate, which is a really important financial thing for you. So I've come to the end of what I was going to say, but I feel like I need to take a little dose of my own medicine here. And as I'm talking about endings, I wanted to give you a positive ending for the talk. And I realise when I talk about these things that I'm encouraging you to come up with ideas or have, you know, creative thoughts about how you interact with clients and customers and how you can deal with situations. And I definitely don't think they're all expensive things you need to do, but sometimes a creative idea goes a long way. So I want to leave you with an image from a very famous English film, which I hope you've heard of, and that's The Italian Job, and that ends with a bus about to fall off a precipice in Italy, and the saying, "Hang on, lads, I've got a great idea." So that's it. Thank you. Thank you from me. I hope that was useful to you, and I look forward to seeing the next of our webinars. So bye from me for now.